Aha, that's much better now. I can actually hear. So this is a super long game, and again, all of your games are so damn long. But that's good. It's fine. So what we're working on this game, we have two separate styles, right? There's the I'm going to make a timing attack at exactly so-and-so number of minutes with such and such an army and win. And that style means that you have to have your build absolutely perfect, but the plus side is that it's usually either a 1 or 2 base build, so it's much easier to keep your build perfect in the early game than in the late game. And then the second style is the I'm just going to keep up on workers and keep up on spending all game long and go for a third that's faster than my opponent, and just go for a long macroeconomic win. So we've tried both styles, and you're decent at both of them. Right now in this game we're going for the macro style. It looks like you took this gas immediately after you took this command center, which I don't particularly like, but we'll see what you're doing with it. Bunker down here. Again, you always put bunkers right next to your ramp. That's wrong. Put it exactly 6 range from your ramp. So count out the size of a 3-sized building like a racks, and the size of a depot too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then put the bunker right there so that it covers the whole thing. As long as your bunker can shoot anyone trying to come up the ramp, then that's the same as having it touching the ramp. It's just as good. I saw you miss a worker there, but I forgive you. You're at 26 workers at this point at 6 minutes. That's crazy good. Super fast expansions are really good economically. One thing you got to be worried about is that a 1-base 1-1-1 push is going to hit you at about 7.5 minutes with about 2 siege tanks and maybe a banshee and like 8 marines, right? So you have to have enough to be able to combat that. And doing the build that you're doing with this fast gas and these reactor cores, there's a lot of stuff going on in your base that isn't directly converting to army. So it's good that you're spending all your money, but this build will die to banshees and will die to tank pushes. So I would be very cautious about getting reactor cores on your racks when you fast expand, because you need the marines, and you need them right now. You don't need a bunch more marines later. You need a bunch of marines right this very second. And just delay your gas. Get those 4 racks, get 10 marines, and then add gas and add reactor cores and whatever. Yeah. So at 8 minutes, your army size is tiny, fractional. It's 1,000. The normal army size at 8 minutes is 2,000. And like I said before, when you fast expand, you're allowed to have a smaller army, but you're only allowed to have exactly $500 smaller of an army, because that's how much you spent on this command center. And even though you are making more workers, they're mining, so they're paying for themselves as they come out, and the mules especially are paying for themselves. So you really want to keep track of these army size benchmarks and make sure that you're within 500 of the standard benchmark. So right now you're at 1,000, you want to be at 1,500. The benchmark is 2,000, so yeah, that's bad. Again, infantry without upgrades, pretty crap. So I would really like to have seen stim and combat shields. So what you want to do in the build that I showed you before is okay. So fast expand, then 4 racks, and then no add-ons on any of those 4 racks. Keep up marines and SCVs and marines and SCVs. As soon as your 4th rack's finished, you can get double gas. And then as soon as you get about 75 gas, you throw down a tech lab. Your first 100 rack gas goes into combat shields or stim, pick one. You got to throw down an engineering bay at around 530, and then your second 100 gas is going to go into +1, and then your third 100 gas is going to go into either reactor cores if you've scouted that your opponent expoed, or nothing. You might just have to save it up just to make sure you keep your army size going. But once you've either fought in the middle of the field or feel like you're not going to have to for a little while, you can throw down 3 reactor cores at once and then get a factory, and then start whichever one of the 2 stim or combat shields you didn't get before. So plan out your build based on what each 100 gas goes towards. That way you don't have to remember a big long series of things like, oh, I need to get 4 racks, and then I need to add a factory, then I need to add 2 starports, I need to add blah, blah, blah. Like, it's much easier to just say, well, what does my first 100 gas go towards? Stim. What does my next 100 gas go towards? +1. What does the next 100 gas go towards? 2 reactor cores. The next 100 gas, factory. Next 100 gas, either a tech lab or reactor core on the final racks, and +1 armor, and the next under gas combat shields, so on and so forth. And when you plan a build based on gas, the assumption is that gas is the least important part of the build, right? So you're treating it first because you have so little of it that you can afford to treat it first. Look at this saturation. This is wrong. Nobody in your main. So you did the thing where you rally everyone to your natural after you saturate your main, but then you built double gas and pulled guys off your main to put into the double gas, and that doesn't work. So what you want to do, this command center is going to finish when you have about 18 workers mining minerals. So then you double rally everyone to the low ground. But when you make gas, use low ground workers to make gas, because this is the pool of workers that's fluctuating in size. This is the pool of workers you never want to have to think about again, because it's exactly 18 or 20. So when you make gas, you pull all these guys and go gas, 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 and then we have to saturate them. You pull 6 to 8 of these guys, go right click, remove 2, right click, remove 2, right click, remove 2. Right click, remove 2, and then move everyone back to minerals. Again, one of the biggest problems you have is even when you focus like really hard on getting as much money as you can, you have a lot of trouble spending your money, and part of that is because it takes you so long to do things like saturation balance, counting your workers, moving guys to gas, and stuff like that. And part of the reason that it takes you a long time to move guys to gas is that you do it like this. Okay, let's look. So the game's going, and I'm going to try to grab exactly 2 guys and put them on gas. So that took me about amount of time. So instead, what you can do is just grab everyone on the patch, right click, and then remove a guy and put it back. So even though it takes you the same amount of time to do stuff, the guys start moving to gas immediately, and you spend less time staring at the guys trying to grab 2 of them. And that becomes especially important when you have to build 4 racks at once, right? You say, okay, I need 4 more racks. Grab all these guys, build racks, 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 racks. You know, you can just say BR and then hold down shift and throw down 4 racks, or just do BR click, BR click, BR click, BR click. And yeah, so being able to do things really quickly is something that you can practice every time you play, and it's really important because you only have so much time, and the more of it you spend doing useless stuff, the less time you get to spend doing cool stuff. So the super fast expansion has put you way ahead economically. You're up 10 workers. Your income is much bigger than his, but it should be even bigger. You should have a 2,000 mineral income, and the reason you don't is because of this. And you're spending your money pretty well, but I suspect that pretty soon, yeah, pretty soon when you take your third, you really want to be taking your third around 10 minutes if you've already fought a battle. If you haven't fought a battle, it's okay to delay it until 11 or 12 minutes, but definitely shouldn't be going all the way to 13 or 14 minutes. That's not cool. It's not cool, man. It's not cool, bro. Because with the super fast expansion, you're counting on an economic lead to win this game, but the economic lead is based on the number of workers, right? You get an expansion quicker, you have more workers. But that lead dies the second you hit 52. Right? Because from 52 to 59, those 7 workers are not helping you. Look at this. Only 20 guys are helping down here, and there's like 60. So you actually have less income than your opponent right now, and that's just because you didn't take your third quick enough. There's nothing for these workers to do. So yeah, you're playing a style that says, look at this, I have more workers than you, and if you don't have enough mineral patches for your workers to do something, then it's useless. So that's something to work on. You're keeping your cash lower than he is, and you have been all game. He had like 1,000 minerals at 10 minutes, and that's because you're doing a marine build. It's so much easier to keep your cash low when you do a marine build, but the problem is that marine builds are inherently susceptible to area of effect, especially tanks and blue flame hellions. I'm losing my voice. So he's got nowhere to dump his minerals is the point. Anyway, this third is too late, 2 minutes too late, and as a result, you're going to have a dip in your Equal No Lodge. I really wish that you would notice this saturation problem. Look at this, there's only 6 guys mining at your main now. It's very silly. You've also cut workers, presumably because you've noticed how oversaturated you are at your natural, but I would be cautious about cutting workers this early. Like I said, you want to get 18 guys up here, then pull guys down here to add gas, and pull guys from down here to saturate gas, and then put 2 more guys up here, and every time you build a building, pull guys from down here, and so on and so forth. And every time you're pulling guys from down here, you're selecting all of them and glancing at how many you have, and then saying build gas, build gas. And then you want to make racks, you grab all of them and build racks, build racks. And every time you grab all of them, you get a count of how many workers you are. So it becomes really obvious when you're about to be oversaturated. When you have this, if we didn't have a first page, this would be full saturation. And so when you get about 16 guys on minerals down here, plus 6 on gas and 6 on gas and 20 up here, it's time for your third, because every SCV you make after that point is just not going to be doing anything. So that's how you can know the timing of your third without having to look at the clock. Because especially if you lose 20 SCVs to an early Hellion drop or something, you don't want to be getting your third at the exact same time every game. You want to be getting your third when your natural has 16-ish workers on it, because it's about to have 24 and you'd really want a third. So this is great, but what makes this great, even though he has 6 siege tanks and he's gonna pretty much crush your Marines down there. First, you had this tower, so you caught him unsieged. And second, your army was just massively bigger than his. And 2-1 upgrades don't hurt. So if we look at supply before the battle, it's 140 to 128, and your army size is 4,300 versus 4,100. But his 4,100 includes a lot of stuff that's not in the fight. And Marines are way more powerful than siege tanks, especially unsieged, unfiring siege tanks. And having a 0-1 upgrade versus a 1-2 upgrade, I believe you kill these guys about 40% faster than they kill you. So you just ripped them to shreds. I don't like your micro in this fight, and I've seen you do this a lot of times. And we were playing in a Google Hangout where I was watching you play, and I kept saying, "Don't micro, don't do that. What you're doing is hurting you. It's not helping you." And I know that at the end, because you were so close to the siege tanks can't fire, and that's cool and everything. But every time you move a large group of Marines, they clump up. And against siege tanks, what you want is a big arc at about 5 range. So what you're trying to do is make a ball and put it right here and say, haha, I'm so close that these 2 tanks can't fire. But that's not true, because this tank can shoot all the way over here. So even if you had the ball as close as it possibly can be, the siege tanks would still be able to fire. So your guys are in a line because you've moved them as a group, and this is typical. So when you attack, if you just A move, what's going to happen is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of your guys are going to spread out here and start shooting. And the other 48 of your guys aren't going to be able to do anything. So it is kind of important to get a little bit closer than just A moving. So what you really want to do is A move your whole army, and then grab this side and right click right there. And that's it. They'll handle the rest on their own. And then grab this side and right click right here, and that's it, and they'll handle the rest on their own. So then what's going to happen is the guys that you didn't right click on, these guys are going to be A moved, and since there's 16 of them, they're going to spread out in a 16 wide arc about through here. And then over here where you sent the other 16 guys, they're gonna spread out in like a 5 wide arc and maybe kind of screw that up. And then over here where you sent the other guys, they have enough room here to spread out like 30 guys. So if you sent like 16 guys right here, and then they because you didn't give them any other commands, they know to attack next because they're within a reasonable range of the bad guy. They're gonna spread out in an arc, so you're gonna end up with an arc here, and kind of a clump over here. And that's what you want against siege tanks. You want your guys not to be clumped up. So after you've done those first 3 commands and gotten your guys into a reasonable position, then you want to start grabbing little groups, 2 guys at a time, and moving them to various spots. Grab 2 guys, move them, grab 2 guys, move them, grab 2 guys, move them, like that. And just spread your guys out. Look for the most tightly packed group of guys you have that is closest to the siege tanks. And that's where the siege tanks are going to fire next. and grab half that pack and move it away so that it's half the size. You're basically just trying to reduce tank splash damage without reducing your DPS. So what you're doing here, the stutter step in, it's kind of good, and it's much better than just A moving. But the bad part about it is if we watch, your army is going to stay in this tightly packed group. So a siege tank shot right here is going to hit 16 guys. That's a huge number of guys. And a siege tank shot here is going to hit like almost 16 guys. So the problem with stutter stepping is you see how they're not spreading out. By default, when you attack with a group of guys, they spread out, and every time you move them in like this, not only do they reduce their damage significantly, like every time you give them a move command, that's like 2 shots that they're not getting off. So in this fight, your guys should have gotten like 10 shots, and instead they got 5. So they did like half the damage they would have done if you just not stutter stepped. So if you do want to stutter step, and I'm saying you shouldn't, but if you just wanted to stutter step because you think that you're so overwhelmingly going to win this fight and you think you can kill him before he sieges up, what you'd want to do is right click here and then A move here, and then right click here and then A move here, and then stop, so that your guys end up in a position kind of like this. Because if you keep moving closer and closer, every time you give a move command, it reduces your DPS. So you saw, just to close to this distance, you missed probably 2 shots. When Marines are stimmed, they shoot at this ridiculously fast rate. So just to move from here to here, it took you about 2 shots. But that was a good move, because now you've got all these guys are firing. Like, instead of just having 20 guys firing, you have 30, 32 guys firing. And that's good. So that's fine. That stutter step was worthwhile. But now you stutter step again. You had 20 guys firing, and that second stutter step added you about 8 guys. Not really worth it, because you're reducing the damage of 20 guys to give 8 guys a chance at the fight. But on top of that, you missed like 2 shots to make that stutter, and then you do it again. This one, you didn't add any guys to the fight, and you reduced the damage of everyone, and you clumped your guys up even more. So now if he shoots a tank shot right there, he's going to hit 24 guys instead of 16 from before. And then now you do it again, one other little, that probably costs you 1 shot. This one costs you about 2 shots, and again clumps your guys up even more. So this kind of stutter stepping, really bad. Did you see that? Like, his tanks only got 1 shot because you caught him unsieged, and that 1 shot should have hit, with 6 tanks, you should have hit, you know, 12, 15 guys if you had your guys at a reasonable arc. But instead, it's going to be like 1 shot, come on, boom, boom. So you lost about half your army in the first volley from the siege tanks. And then you clump them up even more. Like, that siege tank shot gave you a pretty good arc that makes it so that his next splash isn't going to hit very much. But then you move them closer to the tanks, and in doing so this is a reasonable arc. Like, a siege tank shot here is going to hit like 5 guys, and a siege tank shot even here is going to hit like 6 or 7 guys. This is a reasonable arc. What you really want in this position is for these guys that aren't even shooting to get right-clicked over here, and for these guys that aren't even shooting to get right-clicked over here. But instead you move them forward, and then it just makes them in an even more tightly packed group where the next siege tank shot hits all but 3 of your guys. So microing against siege tanks is something you can practice in the unit map tester. It's really easy to practice because siege tanks don't need to be moved to fight it in high efficiency. Just go in there, make a ton of Marines, put a bunch of siege tanks up, and try various methods of approaching those siege tanks with your Marines, and you'll quickly find that stutter stepping is the worst of methods, and that A moving or right clicking on a specific siege tank so that your guys form an auto arc is a much better method. I believe I have a tip video about engaging siege tanks with Marines. Anyway, this is still massively oversaturated. Your third is now up and morphed into an orbital, but nobody has been transferred over there, and your main is still completely undersaturated. So this is bad, but the overall arc of the game at this point is that you've had you've had about the same income as him for a long time, because you got a much bigger income with your fast expand. But then as soon as you maxed out saturation on this base, probably at like 8 minutes. Whoop. Okay, so at this point, you've got half your guys here and half your guys here, so you have more workers and therefore more income, right? you have a teeny tiny income advantage. It's like 15 against 14, and that's great. But as now this base is oversaturated, so from now on, even though you're ahead on workers, your income is going to be very close to his as long as he remembers to drop mules. So yeah, you have about the same income as him, about the same income as him. So even though you have more workers than him, you have about the same income, and that's really bad because the whole point of getting more workers, you know, just have a bigger income. So yeah, about the same income, about the same income. Again, you're dropping mules, he's not. So it's he's wasting his money on scans, so you have a bigger income based on that. But this is not helping you any. You've still got basically the same $1,500 income that you had at 8 minutes. From 8 minutes on, you have not been getting income. This is something we talked about a million times. You threw down these gas geysers and then you never put guys in them. This happens to you a lot. Really, really bad. And I think the reason that it happens is because, like I said, you're trying to grab exactly 2 guys and put them on gas. If you just grabbed all these guys, had gas, shift, gas, shift, racks, you know, like next time you need a building, you say gas, racks, then you can saturate that gas without affecting anything, and then just click everyone back to minerals. So now you're up 10, 11 workers, but you've got a smaller income than your opponent. So this game had the potential to be really good because you got so many more workers than your opponent. You got really good upgrades. You got lots of Marines. You engaged pretty well. But there's still a lot of big problems in it, and the biggest, of course, is worker saturation. And the second biggest is how late your third was. Third biggest is this really bad idea of how you're supposed to be making your Marines. And from there, you were 25 supply up, and now you're 10 supply up. I think you got this game kind of in the bag. Like I said before, the Marine heavy macro game style, you want to use Marines and medevacs in combination for a long time, because what happens is as soon as you have stim and medevacs, Marines are so fast that there's nothing Terran has that can chase them down. Even Hellions can't really chase them down because pure Hellion against pure Marine, if you get a reasonable spread and just turn, stim, and engage, then the Hellions have to walk away. So what you want to be doing is as soon as you have this big, heavily upgraded Marine force, you just want to be out on the field, right in front of his base, and be like, yes, I know that I can't walk into those siege tanks, but I can walk up to right here if I want to and just scare the piss out of you and force you to keep moving your army. So you walk over here and you say, I see your siege tanks, I'm going to go towards your third. And now suddenly either his whole third dies or he moves his siege tanks. And if he moves his siege tanks, you can just stim in and kill them because now they're unsieged. If he doesn't move his siege tanks, you get to kill his third. If you find that he has siege tanks here and siege tanks at his third so you can't kill his third, then you walk over to here. You don't pick up in the medevacs, you just walk over and say, I wonder if I can pick up and go into his main. So once you get here, if there's no turrets, you just pick up, go in towards his main. If he has siege tanks here too and he stops your push, you just walk away. He can't chase you down. You get to spend all game just standing outside his base. If his army is bigger than yours, you just never fight. But he can't push you away either. You just get to be there because Marines are the fastest thing in the universe. Mobility is the primary benefit of this type of build, and that is that. So he scared you away from your third the way you should have been scaring him away from his third, and now you're gonna float back, move your dudes back. Look at this. This is crazy. So you're still about 10 workers ahead, but the number of workers you have mining is less than his. So I think his income is significantly higher than yours. You're going Marine tank. He's going very light Marine tank with very little upgrades. Oh, he's actually got 2-2 now. He was behind on upgrades, but now he's just a little tiny bit behind on upgrades. The big difference is he's making a ton of siege tanks. And is he making a ton of siege tanks out of 20 factories? No. He just keeps this one factory constantly pumping siege tanks. And then the army composition is 13 tanks for him, 4 for you. So this is a big deal. When you're going Marine heavy, there's a certain point, usually around 12 or 14 minutes, where Marines are... They're your bread and butter. They're the main source of your army. But once you have 3 bases with 18 guys mining gas, again, you didn't put guys on gas over here, you have so much gas coming in that there's no way to spend it except medevacs and tanks. So remember how I said in the beginning you want to be prioritizing your gas over your minerals? that's when you're going to end up making 4 medevacs at a time until you have maybe 16 medevacs, and then just constant tanks. And that means you need 3 factories, maybe 4 factories with tech labs all constantly producing tanks. So you should end up maxing out on Marines with medevacs and then remaxing on siege tanks with medevacs and a tiny smattering of Marines. And that's because we always prioritize gas over minerals. So I hope that makes sense. I know that when we played and I was yelling at you to get more siege tanks before, you were like, why? I'm going Marine. But going Marine is not a valid strategy. Once he has a certain number of siege tanks, there's nothing that infinite Marines can do against that. So you're not really planning to go siege tank heavy, but you make tons of Marines and then you trade them repeatedly for his economy and for his infrastructure and for as many tanks as you can kill. And then you try to keep your gas low, and the only way to keep that gas low is siege tanks. So you're going to end up with more siege tanks than a guy who is focusing on siege tanks from the beginning, if you did it right. Anyway, you've been supply cap for a long time, and you've never crossed the field. Like, you're not harassing him, you're not attacking him, and I think that's fine because you're focusing on your macro and you're doing so much better of a job on your macro than he is. You're keeping your money a lot lower and you're getting more money and stuff. But you know, at about 160 unit space, you got to start pushing out, man, because right now there's no way to spend this money. So I hope that you've taken the lesson from the previous game, and as soon as you maxed out, you throw down 3 more factories and some starports and some racks. This is good. Double armory, double starport. So that, yeah, as soon as you get close to max, if you can't think of a good way to engage him, that's when you throw down a ton of production facilities. And you did that, and you did well. Unfortunately, your army is all spread out, and you catch him unsieged walking towards you, and you can't attack him because you never hotkeyed those units, you never hotkeyed these units. And this is a problem, because if this tank pack gets within range of, like, right here, then all of the production infrastructure in your main is useless. Because you can just make an army that has to walk through siege tanks to get anything done. Oh, and you're going to suicide some Vikings. You've got a teeny tiny smattering. You're at 200 unit space, and you have this huge army. Your army is bigger, about the same size as his, but with an upgrade advantage. You know, it's like your army could probably beat his, but it's in 4 different places. Man, you got some guys here, a tiny smattering of guys here, 2 tanks here that have been there all game. Very weird, very weird. So, as is typical for the games that you've played, I suspect that your money is going to climb through the roof as he's kicking your butt down here. Again, there's almost nothing you can do to encroach on a giant group of siege tanks like that, so what you really need to do is prevent them from getting near you in the first place. You need to have this vision and have Marines here and here, and Marines here and here, and then you have vision of the whole map, and as the siege tanks try to push across the map, you just attack into them, and then as soon as they siege up, you run away so they don't fire any shots. And then when they unsiege, you attack into them and unsiege, and attack into them and unsiege. And at the same time, you have a small group of guys that go and kill his third, just like you did. So you managed to kill him by attacking from multiple sides, but at this point, your money is irreparably high. The fact that you took a 4th and he didn't, and that you knocked down his 3rd, basically wins you the game from here, and I'm not going to watch the rest because we all know what happens when you're fighting 0 base against 4 base. So good job. That could have been a lot better. You had so much of a worker lead that you should have had an economic lead, and you didn't, just because of not paying attention to where your workers were and not getting a 3rd quick enough. So really good, but could have done a lot better.